Discover the 7 amazing monsters of Greek mythology that will transform your understanding forever. Sam Miller, standing at the front of his underwhelming classroom, could almost see the yawns bouncing off the painted cinderblock walls. The flicker of student phones captured his attention more than any historical date. This wasn't what he imagined when he dreamed of becoming a teacher. He longed for a connection, a spark, yet here he was, drowning in the mundane routine of the status quo. Each day felt like a battle against indifference, and he was losing that. He shuffled through papers, a flood of doubt washing over him. Could he really infuse this culture-preoccupied classroom with energy, ideas, and passion? Did his students even care? A lingering sense of being an outsider clawed at him, leaving him agitated. Teaching under his grandfather's legacy, a man who roamed ancient ruins weaving tales of Greek gods and monsters, felt like a burden. Would he ever inherit that fire, or would he remain just another disillusioned teacher? He felt hollow. After school one day, rummaging through the attic of his late grandfather's home, Sam stumbled upon a dusty box that whispered secrets of a life lived boldly. Inside, journals penned in spidery handwriting chronicled his grandfather's adventures among the myths, terrifying creatures, soaring heroes, and tales of defiance against the conventional. Each story became an incantation, wrapping around his heart. A craving ignited within him. If only he could echo that adventurous spirit to his students, to ignite their imaginations. Holding the fragile pages, he decided to challenge his students with a unit on 7 amazing monsters of Greek mythology. The thought of it made his pulse quicken. How exhilarating it would be to frame Medusa's turmoil and Hercules's courage as reflections of their frustrations and dreams. But trepidation lurked beneath his excitement. What if the parents objected? What if the school board censored him? The swirling mix of hope and dread coiled tightly in his stomach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sam rolled out the new curriculum, eager for the students' reactions. A wave of interest washed over them, banishing the haze of boredom, but not everyone was thrilled. Anger flared as conservative parents threatened to voice their outrage at the next school board meeting. Dread gripped him like an iron vice. The school board's disapproval echoed in his mind, a cacophony of whispers urging him to conform. Could he really turn back now, or would he be silenced, just another victim of the oppressive tide of tradition? As the day of reckoning approached, his heart raced at the thought of defending his approach. The thought tumbled in his chest, a dark echo of uncertainty weighing him down. Would his pleas for creativity and imagination resonate with those staunch guardians of the past? That morning, determination etched itself on his face as he gazed at the eager faces of his students, the tension mounting within him. He realized then, this wasn't just a lesson about Greeks, it was a revelation about life. Would he stand firm against the storm brewing, or let the fear of ridicule swallow his voice, extinguishing the light within his classroom? Each new day approached with fresh uncertainty. His grandfather's stories loomed large, not as relics of history, but as embers waiting to ignite or burn out. Sam's heart pounded as he steeled himself for the struggle ahead. The choice loomed larger than ever, an unanswered question that fueled both his fear and fierce determination. The school board meeting arrived like a freight train, loud and unstoppable, and Sam stood outside the conference room, mind racing as the far-off shouts of discontent echoed behind him. In a stark white shirt and mismatched tie, he felt like a child caught in a battle meant for adults. The decorum of the surroundings, a polished table, appointed faculty members seated in a semicircle, felt foreign, suffocating. His hands were clammy as he recalled the thrill of presenting the lessons inspired by his grandfather's journals. He had poured his soul into each lecture, weaving stories of Medusa's conflicted heart and Hercules's daunting trials, embedding them within modern struggles. Yet now, their fascination seemed to wane under the weight of disapproval from those who deemed such tales inappropriate. The parents' protests loomed over him like a dark cloud. Sam could hear them now, the passionate pleas accompanied by scathing criticism. Where are the values? What will our children learn from such grotesque imagery? With every echo in his mind, self-doubt clawed at his confidence, the embers of adventure dulling to mere embers. He fought to breathe steadily, aware that he was on the brink of something monumental not merely for his career, but for the young minds who had begun to awaken in his classroom. As he stepped into the room, the atmosphere was thick with tension, faces stern and expectations high. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of his grandfather's boldness. Courage, not compliance, he muttered under his breath, but inside, he could feel the heavy chains of fear tighten around him. When it was finally his turn to speak, the attention felt like a spotlight burning hot against his skin. Sam squared his shoulders, a wave of determination rushing through him. He looked directly at the board members, willing himself to break through their rigid defenses. "I believe that learning should be a conversation, not a dictation," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. "The stories of Greek mythology mirror our current struggles: fear, identity, courage. Isn't it our job to prepare students to face these themes in their lives, in today's context?" The room fell silent, an uneasy tension settling like dust. While a few began to nod, the majority wore faces carved from stone. The challenge was unfolding, but could he force them to see value in the tales? One voice broke the silence, a board member scolding, "These stories are inappropriate for children. They promote violence and disobedience." The dissent was tangible, and doubt returned, wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. Sam felt the anxiety mount, but beneath that cloak, a flicker of urgency ignited within him. "You're right," he replied, heart racing. "But they also promote overcoming adversity and embracing one's struggles. Medusa was not merely a monster, she was a victim of her circumstances. Does that not resonate with the pressures our students face today?" He could see some eyes soften, uncertainty creeping in. It was a crack in the facade he had to exploit. The tension pivoted, shifting slightly as lively discussions erupted from other board members. In that fleeting moment of chaos, Sam glimpsed hope. This meeting would not be his end, it could be a beginning, the first step toward rekindling the flame in a generation tired of confinement. But as the voices of dissent began to rise again, he understood he faced more than just their judgments. It was a battle against fear, his own and that of the community. Each word would count, each argument would matter. He began to strategize, anticipating the next wave of objections, determined to turn the tide, and as he stood on the precipice of transformation, he realized, the battle for his curriculum was also a battle for his own voice. Would he mold his future or let it slip through like sand? And before he could answer, another voice chimed in, questioning whether there would be any room for compromise. Sam tightened his fists, feeling the stirrings of resolve within. The moment had come to face the very resistance that could either forge him as a teacher or condemn him to a legacy of silence. Sam's pulse raced as the cacophony of voices surged around him, each dissenting opinion an arrow aimed at his resolve. Right then, in the tense air of the boardroom, he felt like he was at a cliff's edge. He could cling to the safety of his fears or leap into the unknown, trusting in the spark of bravery flickering inside him. The accusation layered with indignation from the board member hung in the air like a noxious cloud, pinning him to the spot. But Sam realized that the only way to break through was to confront this fear head-on. He opened his mouth, forcing the words out like marbles from a jar. "But isn't it through confronting fears that we grow?" He met the eyes of those around him, imploring them to consider the deeper message. The tales of Medusa and Hercules teach resilience and the strength found in vulnerability. They're not just stories, they're the very fabric of human experience. A board member named Mr. Grayson, his brow furrowing with skepticism, snapped back, "And what if parents feel those stories are too raw? Are you prepared to ignore the opinions of the community?" Feeling the heat of the spotlight harden into a shield, Sam relished the internal conflict raging within him. He considered the notion of compromise, a notion he had fervently resisted until this very moment. Finding common ground doesn't mean sacrificing content. What if we look at these stories from a different angle? We can frame them in ways that honor your concerns while preserving their essential messages. He was surprised by the words that were spilling forth. They held an assertive quality he hadn't known existed within him. A quest for connection emerged, crafting an unexpected foundation beneath the weight of opposition. As lively debate roared around him, he shifted his strategy toward collaboration rather than conflict. Moments turned into minutes, and Sam maneuvered through the reactions of the board as if he were on a tightrope. He could feel the uncertainty of his colleagues teetering, swinging with the force of opinion against opinion. It was no longer about merely defending his curriculum, it was a call to reshape the narrative surrounding education itself. So, he pressed on. Look, I get the hesitation. But if we only tell sanitized versions of life's stories, how do we prepare our students for empathy? A murmur rippled through the room, a slip of potential understanding. Yet the stronger voices remained resolute, unwilling to budge. Again, fear nagged at the back of his mind, but this time he didn't let it paralyze him. Instead, he saw it for what it was, an opportunity to unveil his own capabilities as an educator and communicator. In that instant, he remembered sitting in his grandfather's living room as a child, rifling through faded pages of handwritten journals. There were lessons in each scrawled note, tales spun with blood and breath. Now, standing before the bureaucratic wall before him, Sam noticed a realization crystallizing. He was more than a mere educator, he was a storyteller, a guide for his students. You needn't fear these stories, he finally exclaimed, a rush of passion filling the room. They allow for exploration of our darkest fears and fiercest hopes. They invite students to see the world in technicolor, not just shades of gray. Time seemed to dissolve, swallowed by the weight of his declaration. Sam could sense the shift in the air, but new fleeting victories were built on trust, not just his words. Suddenly, Mr. Grayson delivered a piercing gaze, narrowing in on Sam once more. You may believe you're winning hearts, but how far are you willing to go to make this work? If we don't gain community support, this won't matter at all. That question echoed in Sam's mind, reverberating with the weight of every decision he'd ever faced. How far was he willing to go? He had wrestled with similar dilemmas throughout his life, searching for balance between ambition and acceptance. Stepping outside the fray momentarily, he reflected. Was he prepared to broaden the discussion, to step deeper into a potential minefield, in order to create something transformative in the classroom? Just then, the chairperson announced a break, allowing them to gather their thoughts, but Sam felt a surge of urgency take hold. He needed to act now. More than the fate of his curriculum hung in balance, his evolution as an educator was on the line. With determination, he stood tall, heart pounding in his chest. The decision waited for him, a crossroads harder to navigate than anything he had faced thus far. All he had to do was dive deeper into the storytelling that had ignited the passion in his students, risking everything to ensure it could continue to flourish. In that moment of clarity, the future loomed ahead, an uncertain tapestry woven with potential and peril. What he needed now was a way to harness that energy, a strategy that would not only sway the board but ignite the spirits of those who might still be uncertain. Little did he know, the next confrontation awaiting him would require more than just his words, it would require his heart. Sam stepped out of the boardroom, the air outside felt thick with potential. He could almost taste the electricity of possibility lingering around him. The break had felt like a temporal pause, one that allowed him to breathe, but also to ponder his next steps with an urgency that quickened his pulse. He paced the corridor, grappling with how he would make his case stronger when they reconvened. His mind raced with thoughts of the stories that had shaped his own understanding of the world. What had become clearer in his confrontation was that teaching wasn't merely about the content. It was the connection he forged with students, the stories he shared that ignited their imaginations and hearts. He needed to do more than defend narratives, he had to champion the very essence of storytelling. He pulled out his phone and started drafting a presentation that would redefine his approach. He envisioned a multimedia experience, the legends of Greek mythology interwoven with visual storytelling, workshops that invited students to explore the emotional undercurrents of each tale. The monsters Medusa, Cyclops, Cerberus were not just figures of horror, they represented the fears and challenges that students face daily. Sam's fingers moved feverishly across the screen, structuring the presentation with a clarity he hadn't felt before. Each slide was infused with passion, a breakout from the confines of academic rigidity. By confronting these monsters, we can dismantle the fears that loom in our own lives, he wrote. His conviction swelled. This was how he transcended traditional pedagogy, just as he felt a surge of clarity, a moment of vulnerability washed over him. Was this enough? Could he maintain the respect of the board while instigating a radical change in how they approached education? Flashes of doubt pierced through his enthusiasm, but Sam forced himself to sit with those uncertainties instead of shoving them away. This was a defining moment for him, a chance to lead with authenticity, melding courage with a touch of humility. He glanced around, noticing a group of students drifting in the hallway, their laughter intertwining with his swirling thoughts. They were his why, reminders of the hearts lying at stake. In that moment, he resolved to reach out to them too, understanding their perspectives could fortify his proposal. Gathering their input about the curriculum would show the board that he valued the very community they were worried about. Taking a deep breath, he approached a couple of students he recognized. "Hey, I'm diving into some ideas about our stories in class," he initiated, opening the gate for discussion. The energy in their eyes was infectious as they responded, sharing which characters resonated with them and why. Each story they recounted echoed with the same fears and struggles Sam himself had faced growing up. He realized these conversations weren't just about gathering data, they fed back into his heart, fueling him for the hard discussions to come. Collaborating with his students not only inspired them, it fortified his argument. He was genuinely incorporating their insights, and there lay the power of transformation. With the break almost over, he hustled back to the boardroom, pulse intensifying with each step. His presentation was coming together, but it was the engagement with those students that anchored him. He could showcase their voices, blending insights from the young with wisdom from the old to create an eclectic narrative tapestry. As he stepped back into the boardroom, he caught a glimpse of Mr. Grayson, his earlier skepticism still evident. Sam felt a chill running down his spine at the thought of their impending confrontation. When the chairperson called for order, Sam could feel the weight of anticipation moving through the room. This was at the moment where he had to raising the stakes, embodying the essence of the stories he cherished. He opened his mouth to speak, but then noticed Grayson's critical glare aimed directly at him. A rush of adrenaline surged. This next moment would be pivotal. Not just for his curriculum, but for everyone who believed in the power of stories. The time had come to face the true monsters of the boardroom head-on. Would courage shine through, or would he retreat into the shadows of self-doubt? Sam squared his shoulders and felt the weight of the boardroom's silence like a physical force. It was time to rise, to stand for not just his vision, but for these students who could spark transformation in themselves and others. Instead of retreating under the critical glare of Mr. Grayson, he focused on summoning the earnestness that had driven him to become a teacher in the first place. The essence of education is the stories we tell ourselves and the narratives we share, he began, his voice steady yet spirited. Sam watched as the expressions in the room shifted, mild interest from some, skepticism from others. Today, I want to challenge how we approach narratives in our curriculum. Let's rethink storytelling, not just as academics, but as a vital tool to unearth our students' personal fears and triumphs. He clicked to the first slide, revealing a vivid depiction of Medusa, her serpentine hair twisting in a menacing dance against a dark background. Medusa isn't merely a monster. She embodies isolation and rejection, themes prevalent in the lives of students navigating their own social landscapes. We can use these characters not only to inform them about ancient myths but to connect deeply with their experiences. As Sam spoke, he drew on the insights he had gleaned from students. Their stories propelled his slides, transforming them into a tapestry that connected ancient struggles to modern dilemmas. Each character was a launching point for discussion, a means for students to confront their fears. The energy in the room began to shift, a pulse of curiosity igniting from the previously skeptical board members. Delmar Grayson leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "That's all well and good, Sam, but how do you reconcile these concepts with measurable academic standards? Is understanding one's fears really part of learning? Determined, Sam took a breath, feeling the weight of his previous self-doubt begin to lift. Absolutely, he asserted. When students connect emotionally with the narratives, they invest themselves in the content, which fosters deeper learning. We're not just teaching them to regurgitate facts, we're preparing them to confront real-world challenges. That is the key to engagement. As he navigated through characters like Cerberus and the Cyclops, using them as analogies for resilience and the struggle against monumental obstacles, Sam noticed subtle nods of approval rippling through the board. The earlier tension sheathed in Grayson's demeanor eased ever so slightly. Sam's conviction grew. This was more than just a pitch, it was a movement, an invitation for them all to reconsider educational values. Imagine workshops, he continued, where students create their own myths, drawing from personal experiences that resonate with the monsters they face. We can give them a canvas and tools to articulate what they fear. By confronting these themes, students can process their emotions in a safe space, a chance to understand themselves more profoundly. The eyes of faculty members sparkled with interest. Sam sensed their hesitation ebbing as they grasped the potential of blending classic literature with personal storytelling. Yet, he also felt the lingering presence of Grayson's skepticism. Storytelling matters, but how do we quantify its effectiveness? Grayson pressed, an unyielding edge in his voice. Not everything can be quantified, but we can create assessments to track engagement and emotional connections. Student reflections, presentations based on the characters, and collaborative projects will provide tangible, compelling results. This isn't just about grades, it's about crafting emotionally intelligent individuals. As he concluded his presentation, Sam felt a rush of vulnerability and pride. He had shared his heart, encapsulating not just his ideas, but the very essence of what teaching meant to him. Look, Sam said, taking a risk. I stand before you not only as an educator but as someone who was once in those chairs. I believe that if we embrace the mess of storytelling, we create an environment where students find their voices. And when they do, we empower them to overcome any monster they encounter, not just in the classroom, but in life. Silence enveloped the boardroom once more. Sam locked eyes with Grayson, willing the other man to see the passion that thrummed beneath his words. Would he accept the narrative, or would he remain anchored to tradition? The moment felt suspended in time, taut with anticipation. Unsettling thoughts lingered. Had he conveyed his vision powerfully enough to instigate change? Would he emerge victorious or facing a more daunting monster? Then came the question that would determine everything. So, Sam, what happens if this fails? Grayson asked, crossing his arms defensively. Beneath the intimidating question lay an opportunity, an opening Sam hadn't anticipated. He realized he was standing at another crossroads, one that threatened to either build or break him. It was time not only to present his survival strategies but to confront the very real possibility of failure head-on. With a steady resolve, Sam prepared to answer, understanding that embracing the unknown might be the ultimate test of his character. Sam's heart raced as he met Grayson's gaze, aware that this question, what if it failed, held the weight of his entire professional journey. Suddenly, he was struck by a clarity that he hadn't expected. The truth felt like a silent roar in his mind. Failure, in its rawest form, was simply a stepping stone, not a definitive end. This moment was about more than just a classroom initiative, it was about redefining what it meant to educate, innovate, and inspire. What happens if it fails? Sam echoed, letting the weight of the question linger before pressing forward. If we don't take risks, stay confined to the safe lanes, then we already failed to engage students, failed to prepare them for the complexities of their own lives. But if we dare to tread these new paths, even if we stumble, we'll learn. That's the real lesson, right? He saw some board members nod, a hint of recognition igniting behind their polished exterior. The tension shifted slightly, but Grayson still held firm, visibly unfazed. Learning through failure is noble, but it doesn't provide results. What do you propose if these workshops don't succeed in achieving our objectives? Are we ready to reiterate the curriculum again? Grayson's skepticism refused to budge, like an anchor dragging with unwavering resistance. Sam felt the familiar prickle of doubt creeping in but fought against it. He had come too far to let one question unravel the tapestry he'd woven. Passion surged within him, and he pressed on, fueled by a conviction that encompassed not only his aspirations but those of his students. If these workshops do fail to resonate, he replied, we will analyze. We will seek feedback and adapt swiftly. Education isn't static. It's a living entity, breathing, growing much like the stories we guide our students through. Life is unpredictable, and so too is education. By examining our setbacks, we can forge paths toward new solutions, honing our approach, not abandoning it. He held Grayson's gaze, this time expecting the man's preeminence to wane in the face of his argument. But Grayson remained stoic, an immovable figure. The boardroom seemed to pulse with the undercurrent of anticipation, every pair of eyes now laser-focused on Sam. His pulse thrummed in time with his thoughts. This was no ordinary meeting, it was a crucible moment. Look, Sam concluded, I already see the impact of our choices, students yearning to be heard. We owe them more than mere facts, we should guide them in crafting their narratives, owning their truths. Rhizomes, not just branches. If this project succeeds, we empower our district to develop profound connections across classrooms, breaking from tradition and setting a new standard for emotional learning. If it fails, then we will have tried, and we will move forward. Either way, we gain an invaluable lesson. As the words left his lips, Sam felt a mix of relief and trepidation wash over him. He had ventured into the depths of vulnerability, exposing pieces of himself he had only just begun to recognize as strengths. Mr. Grayson's demeanor flickered, an inkling of intrigue brightening his previously skeptical expression. All right, Sam. You framed this as an experiment with the possibility of iterative learning. What are your immediate next steps? The question reverberated through the room as Sam began outlining his action plan. Yet, in the background of his mind, a gnawing question lingered. Would this be enough to truly shift perceptions, not just today but moving forward? The board was beginning to thaw, but would it be enough to break through the fierce hold of long-standing traditions? With every word he spoke, Sam sensed a dawning realization. The rawest form of leadership wasn't just in the moments of triumph, it was in the willingness to risk the depths of failure in pursuit of something greater. He closed his presentation with a pointed challenge in his gaze. I believe our students deserve so much more than we're providing them. Are we ready to take this leap together? The finality of his challenge hung in the air, and for the first time, Sam recognized the precariousness of his position not as a failure, but as an opportunity for transformation. Would the board follow him into this uncharted territory, or would they retreat into the shackles of convention? In that moment, Sam felt the ground shift beneath him, setting the stage for decisions that would either forge his path or pull him back into the shadows. As he awaited their response, the weight of their collective future weighed heavy on his shoulders. Real transformation required more than a compelling pitch, it demanded a commitment from those around him. Would they summon the courage to join him? The silence hung palpably, a make-or-break moment teetering between past convictions and future possibilities. The second stretched into a taut silence as Sam observed the board's faces, searching for any flicker of acknowledgement. Doubt seeped into his thoughts, threatening to overshadow the adrenaline of the moment. Had he pressed too hard? Had he opened too many doors too quickly, risking their support? The anxious anticipation hung in the air like a storm cloud, and his mind raced with the potential fallout. Silence lingered before Grayson cleared his throat, breaking the tension that clung to the room. Very well, Sam. Let us proceed with a pilot of the workshops. Each word drifted like a stone dropping into a deep well, sending ripples of mixed emotions through Sam. Relief, excitement, and apprehension danced within him. This was his chance, yet the stakes had never felt higher. However, Grayson continued, framing the pivotal battle ahead, I expect measurable outcomes. We will revisit this in 6 months, and if the data doesn't speak in our favor, we reevaluate your position. The challenge hung over Sam, a clear reminder of what was at stake. He was stepping into the unknown, armed only with his conviction and determination. Sam nodded, a small smile breaking through the weight of responsibility. Understood. I will ensure we gather feedback and data continuously. I'm committed to making this work. As the meeting adjourned, Sam stepped into the bustling hallway, where the cacophony of voices filled the air. The loud chatter contrasted sharply with the internal tempest brewing inside him. Flourishing under pressure had always been an unexpected gift, but would it hold true this time? As he walked towards his classroom, his mind flooded with strategies how to implement the workshops, techniques to engage students, and avenues to gather honest feedback. The classroom door creaked open, and as he stepped inside, he was met with the familiar sight of desks placed in disarray and remnants of chalk dust lingering in the air. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust particles like a swarm of fireflies. In this space, he had the power to rewrite narratives and breathe life into stale educational paradigms. But the weight of expectations pushed against him, the ghosts of past failures whispering doubt. So where did he begin? Reassessing the curriculum seemed daunting, but the spark ignited by those boardroom words drove him. He envisioned lively discussions, students engaging with material that spoke to their realities, and discovering new ways to channel their voices. Each lesson would be a canvas, and he merely the facilitator of their creativity. But was he prepared to confront the inertia of those who clung to outdated metrics of success? Sorting through his eager thoughts, he realized what was missing: personal connections. In his push for innovation, had he lost sight of the very students he aimed to inspire? This was his moment to reignite their passions, to guide each of them toward owning their stories. Emboldened by this revelation, he decided to hold an open forum with his students on the upcoming workshops, inviting them to share their desires and concerns. Making the decision filled him with renewed energy, the tension of the boardroom fading as he embraced the role of a true educator, one who learned as much from his students as they did from him. The bell rang, signaling the start of class, and Sam prepared to discuss his plans. But as he stood in front of the assembled students, waving excitement and anxiety intertwining, a sudden commotion outside shattered his focus. Without hesitation, he walked towards the door, curiosity sparking within him. As he opened it, he found a group of students huddled together, their backs turned to him. He leaned in closer, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Suddenly, one of them turned around, and the excitement in their eyes ignited a new wave of possibilities. "What is going on?" Sam asked, intrigue weaving through his voice. The reply rattled through him, energizing his already racing pulse: "You have to see this. We've come up with an idea for the workshops." What began as a personal initiative began to morph into something more vibrant, more collaborative. Sam felt the threshold of transformation looming, his own development intertwined with the essence of those he aimed to guide. Yet, in this moment of possibility, the nagging question remained: could he truly align their ambitions with his own vision for a revolutionized educational experience? The burgeoning energy in the air felt charged with promise and uncertainty, an intersection waiting to be explored. As Sam stood at the door, the gravity of the moment hung heavily in the air. The students rushed past him like a stream, their enthusiasm transcending any trepidation he might have felt just moments before. He followed, curiosity and a deep yearning for connection propelling him forward. In the courtyard, a makeshift gathering had formed. Students were animatedly discussing, pointing to a cluster of poster boards adorned with colorful sketches and bold letters. His pulse quickened as he moved closer. This wasn't just an idea, this felt like a movement brewing in their midst. "What have you all created?" he asked, leaning in, his voice mingling with theirs. One student, Maya, stepped forward. "We thought about incorporating current events into the workshops. What if we turned real-world issues into projects? We can use what we learned to make a difference." Sam's chest tightened with excitement. They weren't just looking for workshops, they were seeking purpose. Here was the opportunity to channel their passions into meaningful work, to align his vision with their ambitions. "But how can we make that engaging?" he queried, pushing deeper. The essential educator in him kicked into gear, challenging them to think critically about the logistics. A wave of ideas surged: a documentary series about local issues, a digital campaign highlighting environmental changes, hosting discussions with community leaders. With each suggestion, Sam could see the fire igniting within each student's eyes. Their voices merged into a choir of creativity, each lyric a testament to the energy he had hoped to inspire. As he facilitated the conversation, he sensed a shift in himself as well. Their fervor drew him out of his reservations. It became clear that this was more than just a pedagogical exercise, it was a profound lesson in humility and collaboration. He started to jot down their ideas, hands moving quickly across a notepad, not just for the workshops but as a blueprint for his own growth. Listening to them, Sam realized that he had been focusing too much on a top-down approach, an old habit nurtured by years of tradition. This collaborative spirit challenged him to evolve, to embrace vulnerability and listen deeply, but amidst the exhilarating exchange, a whisper of doubt crept back in: would the administration support this less conventional approach? What if the workshops veered too far from assessed benchmarks? The clash of his past convictions with newfound insights created an internal maelstrom. "Okay," he announced, rallying his confidence. "Let us refine these concepts and present them as a proposal for the pilot workshops. Your voices matter here, and I want my role to be about empowering you in the process." His statement elicited cheers, the air cracking with renewed energy. They flowed into discussions, and for the next hour, they brainstormed, planning contingencies and carving out roles, moving from excitement to strategizing their shared vision. As students' laughter echoed around him, Sam felt anchored in purpose. Still, beneath that buoyancy, uncertainty lurked. This was a vivid opportunity to reshape not only the curriculum but his very identity as an educator. By the end of the day, they had an impressive proposal, bold, layered, and reflective of their collective ambition. He sat quietly in the fading afternoon light, glancing over it. Yet beneath the thrill of this newfound collaboration weighed the reality of the coming presentation to the board. Would they see the potential as clearly as the students did? As he sealed the proposal, a thick layer of anxiety coated his spirit. The board's criteria loomed large in his mind. Did engaging the students in a conversation of real-world issues align with measurable outcomes? Could he transform their shared dreams into reality, or would it fade under scrutiny? The moment of decision was approaching. How could he ensure that both the administration's expectations and the students' imaginative spirit were met? Sam closed his eyes, firming his resolve. The time had come to face not just the board, but the foundations of his own aspirations as an educator and possibly, a mentor. Doubt clung to Sam as he left the classroom, but he resolved to channel it into preparation. He would not allow apprehension to dim the excitement burning in the hearts of his students. Each step toward his office felt heavier, and yet, deeper than that weight was an electric curiosity about the road ahead. Settling into his chair, he unfurled the proposal across his desk, its pages brimming with potential. He found comfort in the outlines they decrafted, the projects that sparked uncontainable enthusiasm in the students. Their voices echoed in his mind, each one underscoring the power of their collective vision. Yet as he traced the words with his finger, doubt interjected, questioning the validity of their ambition. These plans felt radically different from the structured curriculum he had adhered to for so long. What would the board think? Would they dismiss it as unfocused? Sam struggled to reconcile their progressive vision with the rigidity of traditional benchmarks. He could already hear the concerns echoing in the conference room. How does this align with standardized testing? He squeezed his eyes shut, steeling himself. This was a moment that could pivot his career from a prescriptive educator to an inspiring mentor. He reminded himself that growth required risk. Folding the proposal neatly, he began to rewrite his thoughts, scripting a presentation that would articulate the compelling blend of creativity and learning the students envisioned. The next morning dawned, bringing with it palpable anticipation. Clad in a sharp blazer, he felt a surge of confidence as he approached the boardroom. The polished table gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, and he could see the figures of the board, their faces set, some skeptical, others indifferent. "Thank you for assembling on short notice," Sam began, gripping the edges of the table. He allowed his nerves to settle, igniting the passion for the project brewing inside him. Today, I want to share a proposal directly inspired by our students. With each slide, he passionately depicted the students' ideas, blending real-world challenges with academic concepts. Heads nodded in interest as he highlighted the vitality of addressing local issues. The energy in the room thawed, subtly shifting as he intertwined their suggested projects with measurable educational outcomes, yet, when he finished, the room turned cold. One board member leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Sam, while we appreciate the enthusiasm and creativity, how exactly do you intend to measure success here? We can't just implement projects based on engagement. There needs to be a quantifiable outcome." His heart sank, but Sam took a breath. This was the moment to confront not only the board's concerns but his own fears. "I understand your hesitations. However, what we're aiming at is more than just data. It's about fostering critical thinking and empowerment. These students aren't solely looking to learn, they want to act and engage with their world." The words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. He was confronting assumptions that had shackled his own teaching philosophy. Here he was, rattling the foundations he had believed were immovable. Yet this confrontation felt liberating, even if the challenge risked rejection. "Perhaps," he offered tentatively, "the success of these workshops can also be assessed through qualitative measures, student reflections, community feedback, and ongoing projects rather than just final scores." There was a shift in the room. Questions sparked by their curiosity began to crest. For the first time, he saw glimmers of intrigue in their eyes. Sam felt the emerging changes within him, a growing resolve that he could alter perceptions, including his OWN.AS. The meeting droned on, the push and pull between creativity and tradition played out like a dance. He leaned into this uncertainty, crafting responses that navigated critical metrics while still advocating for the emotional resonance of his students' ambitions. But just as he felt the tide turning, another board member interjected, the weight of her gaze locking onto him like chains. "That's a very idealistic approach, Sam. What if it fails? What if the kids don't want to keep up their end of the bargain?" The question struck hard, reverberating through his core. Would the students rise to the level of expectation? Or had he placed too much faith in their aspirations? Sam's thoughts raced, and a realization crystallized: even if the endeavor didn't yield conventional success, it was worth pursuing for its potential. Igniting a passion for learning could redefine failure itself. As the discussion continued, doubts and possibilities cascaded like leaves in autumn. For every question he faced, he felt the valid desire for authentic change. This journey was no longer just about submitting a proposal, it was about clashing ideals, the old ways versus a new vision for education. And as he fended off their skepticism, he couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. Would he emerge stronger or splintered? The moment felt pivotal, and with every response, he sensed the stakes rising. The board's initial reluctance was transforming into questioning, yet lurking within him was the nagging fear of failure, both of himself and the students. What was about to unfold would either cement or fracture his sense of purpose. As the discussion thickened, Sam felt an unrelenting tension, one that demanded resolution. Would sticking to his vision inspire others, or would fear of disappointment strangle the spark made earlier with passion? With a renewed determination, he prepared to confront not just the board's skepticism but the looming realization that his future as an educator hung in the balance, one decision away from either breaking free or being bound by the past. As the weeks unfolded after the pilot workshop proposal was accepted, Sam found himself immersed not only in a whirlwind of activity but also in a transformative journey of self-discovery. The workshops had taken off like wildfire, igniting enthusiasm and creativity among his students. They worked together, developing projects that addressed real issues within their community: environmental concerns, social justice, and equity. The once lifeless classroom now buzzed with energy, a palpable excitement swirling around. Though enrollment had initially been a challenge, his proactive engagement with students transformed initial skepticism into fervent participation. Sam was amazed to watch students emerge as leaders, confidently presenting their ideas and embracing collaboration. Their consistent feedback kept pushing him further. Each reflection written, each presentation given, underscored that education was thriving when students felt genuinely invested. Beyond the walls of the classroom, invitations sprouted like seeds. Students wanted to share their work with the community. They advocated for their projects, connecting with local leaders and civic organizations, which solidified their voices and nurtured changes on a grassroots level. The impact rippled beyond their initial goals, resonating with everyone involved. For Sam, witnessing their growth filled him with an indescribable sense of pride. Amidst this success, Sam continued to wrestle with deeper self-doubt. Grayson's lingering questions haunted him. What if the board didn't see value in these changes? What if results fell short of expectations when they reconvened? But instead of succumbing to fear, he chose to harness these uncertainties as motivators, challenging himself to ensure the success of each student's journey. During a pivotal midterm meeting with the board, the air crackled with anticipation. Sam felt a mix of elation and anxiety as he prepared to share tangible outcomes. This meeting would determine whether his vision for more culturally relevant education would secure its place within the curriculum. He had compiled a portfolio illustrating the powerful testimonials from students, real-life impacts on their communities, and methods of assessment to measure engagement beyond traditional testing metrics. Standing before the board with statistics in hand and a transformed expression, he felt a sense of gravity settle in. "Today, I'm not just presenting numbers," he began, voice steady. "I'm sharing stories, real experiences that have changed lives, including my own." As he unveiled the students' reflections and the outreach projects they spearheaded, the room shifted from skepticism to intrigue. When Grayson raised his brow and probed about the long-term sustainability of this approach, Sam summoned the confidence he had cultivated as an educator. Education must evolve, just as the challenges our students face do. While we measure academic success in scores, we must also recognize that true learning occurs when students see themselves in the stories they learn. By continuing these workshops, we're equipping them with critical thinking, empathy, and resilience skills essential for navigating today's world. As the discussion deepened, board members began to nod, some leaning in with interest. They exchanged glances filled with curiosity rather than doubt, igniting a flicker of hope in Sam's heart. He felt grounded. This wasn't merely about defending a curriculum, it was about championing his students and his grandfather's legacy as a storyteller. After nearly an hour of back-and-forth dialogue, a vote was called. Sam held his breath, tense anticipation filling the air. When the chairperson announced the approval to continue developing the program, a surge of triumph coursed through him. Accomplishment radiated from within. Sam had faced his fears, and not only had he succeeded, it was a transformative, collective triumph that bridged generations. As the meeting concluded, Sam stepped out of the boardroom with newfound clarity. He was no longer just an educator, he was a leader, a guide, one who had harnessed his voice and seen his students flourish under the weight of possibility. His heart swelled with profound satisfaction. He had inherited that vital fire from his grandfather, now transformed into a beacon not only for himself but for countless students whose stories would create lasting impacts. With every new venture and each spark of creativity ignited, Sam had traversed from uncertainty to purposeful leadership and accomplished something greater than himself. This journey was not simply a momentary victory, it was a canvas for continuous evolution and innovation in education itself. As he stared out the window, sunlight spilling over the horizon, he realized that this was merely the beginning. He had achieved not just acceptance from the board, but recognition of his unwavering belief in the power of transformative storytelling. His students had proven they could confront their own monsters and emerge triumphant. Now, it was Sam's turn to lead them into an even brighter future. As he walked back into his classroom, Sam felt the familiar stir of excitement. It was time to share this news with his students, to invite them into the next chapter of their heroic journey, a dance of words, actions, and challenges that would only strengthen their resolve. Their shared success was a testament to the impact of courage, connection, and creativity. Sam blinked back tears of gratitude as he welcomed his students, recognizing the indelible bond forged through their collective triumphs. Their growth became his own, embodied in a declaration of newfound purpose. As he shifted further away from the shadows of doubt into a space where achievement flourished alongside authentic growth, now was the time for action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories, leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and theories about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.